Mr. President, could you tell us to what degree some of the outside conservative voices help to shape your views on this national emergency?
I would talk about it. Look, Sean Hannity has been a terrific supporter of what I do, not of me. If I changed my views, he wouldn't be with me. They don't decide policy.
Good morning and welcome to AM Joy. Well, as much as Donald Trump likes to say that conservative TV doesn't influence his administration's policies, let's just not forget Trump shut down the government after outrage from conservative pundits like Ann Coulter, Laura Ingraham, and Rush Limbaugh over the possibility of not getting funding for the precious, a giant border wall that he promised Mexico would pay for. Trump also denies he takes cues from Sean Hannity, although the Fox host all but predicted Trump's declaration of a national emergency days before it happened.
The important third step needs to happen simultaneously, and that would be the president would need to declare a national emergency. This is the time. That is a necessity.
Apparently fed up with all the speculation that he tells Trump what to do, Hannity went on a full-blown rant on Friday in an attempt to shut that storyline down.
The president nor anybody in the White House ever called to calm me down, whatever that means. Now, to end all fake news reports on how I accurately predicted exactly what the president would do on the border, he didn't tell me. It's simple. I paid attention to all his public comments.
Joining me now is Tiffany Cross of the Beat DC, Jason Johnson of TheRoot.com, Michelle Bernard of the Bernard Center for Women, Politics, and Public Policy, and MSNBC contributor Charlie Sykes. All right, guys, I'm going to come to the table first now because Hannity is very upset that people think that he tells Trump what to do. But it is an interesting thing that Hannity first came out against this bill that Donald Trump signed, that he then rebuked by doing this national emergency. But then all of a sudden he started kind of supporting it. Let's take a listen to the two Sean Hannitys on this bill.
$1.3 billion? That's not even a wall, a barrier. I'm going to tell this tonight, and we will get back into this tomorrow. Any Republican that supports this garbage compromise, you will have to explain.
Okay, well, now let's play Sean Hannity seeming to change his mind about the bill. And this is on Tuesday and Friday. This is after the bill was signed.
I'm not as concerned as some other conservatives if the president signs the bill. I'm thrilled with it because I've been calling for secure borders and build the wall first for a long time.
If anybody touches this garbage bill, they're finished. Oh, you know what? This bill is great. So like the one thing that this does potentially prove is that maybe Sean Hannity takes orders from Trump.
I think it's this bizarro relationship where they take orders from each other. You remember a while ago they were talking about these two talk to each other every night on the phone, and then, no, you hang up first. No, you hang up first. I mean, I think this is what we're seeing. I don't know that it has to necessarily be one side. And I've said this before, that we call him a dictator all the time, but dictators tell the media what to do. I think there's plenty of times where Fox has told Donald Trump what to do. Yes. And here's the thing. I actually agree with Sean Hannity when he said, look, I've just been paying attention to what the president has been saying all along. There is some element to truth about all that. On the campaign trail, he said all these things that he would do. Consistently while he's in office, he said these things he would do. And for the past few decades, he has consistently echoed white supremacy messages and acted out white supremacy policies. So the fact that we clutch our pearls every time he comes out with some, wall to keep brown people out the country or some other racist rhetoric that he iterates, that's the ridiculous part, because we on this panel have certainly all known who this man is.
It's a chicken and an egg that give birth to each other.
That's the best way to say it. Yes. They literally shared a lawyer. They shared Michael Cohen. These people have a relationship. So I think the issue is, look, I don't have a problem with the president talking. It's good that he's talking to somebody other than his own children because he needs some advice. I don't have a problem with him having good relationships with pundits at Fox. Presidents have had relationships with the media for time immemorial, since the first radio carrier pigeon, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is that's all he listens to. The problem is he listens to Sean Hannity instead of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The issue is that he listens to Laura Ingraham rather than Mitch McConnell, rather than his biggest fan in the world, Lindsey Graham. I wish we had a president who'd be willing to listen at least to his party rather than people who are concerned about ratings.
To the experts. And let me play a back and forth, because this is the other issue, is that, there aren't that many experts left, Michelle, that are willing to work for this administration. And the people they try to hire, like Heather Nauert from Fox News, end up being like, whoa, this might not be my speed. But Donald Trump seems to take his talking points from, or maybe give his talking points to Fox News in a way that is very unusual. Let me play you a little mashup of Trump and Sean Hannity.
I'll sign the final papers as soon as I get into the Oval Office, and we will have a national emergency.
The national emergency would be challenged, as we always see with the Democrats.
And we will then be sued.
They'll get to the Ninth Circuit.
And they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit.
The president will lose the first round.
And we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling.
He'll lose the second round.
And then we'll end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll get a fair shake.
In front of the Supreme Court, the president is on solid legal ground.
And we'll win in the Supreme Court.
I believe when it gets to the Supreme Court, he's going to win.
Look, Sean Hannity has been a terrific, terrific supporter of what I do.
I mean, does Bill Shine just write one set of talking points and just give one copy to Trump and one copy to Hannity?
He presses send on the email and it goes to everybody. I was like watching that and trying so hard to take this seriously, but it's just absolutely absurd. You know, one of the things we have to remember is that Donald Trump was once a big Democrat, so he needs Fox Media to tell him what it is to be a conservative, at least from their perspective. And that's what's so scary, because they are so far right to mainstream Republicans and the mainstream Republican Party that, for all intents and purposes, they're really running the country.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't even understand. I don't know that he knows exactly what the Supreme Court does.
Yeah,
you know, and I will say that I take solace in the fact that recent cases lead me to believe that at least if he's trying to telegraph something to the Supreme Court, that Justice John Roberts is not going to listen.
He's not going to listen.
There's no way to let that happen.
Get Charlie Sykes in here. You're at the disadvantage of not being at the table with us. I want to bring you in because that is a good point, I think, that Michelle makes, is that in a sense, right-wing media is teaching Donald Trump how to sound like a conservative, right? That's part of it, is to try to teach him to sound authentic in being what he is now. Because Donald Trump is whatever he needs to be year by year, moment by moment, decade by decade, right?
Well, you know, by the way, that little mashup you just played is a perfect example of the feedback loop of this presidency and Fox News. I mean, it really shows. I mean, look, what else would he do with his executive time? But I think you're missing one key factor here, and I think I know exactly how this played out here. You know, yes, you have Donald Trump and you have Sean Hannity, but then you also have this base, which has been ginned up now for years and has certain expectations about the president and whether or not he fights. And Sean Hannity understands, look, you know, I'm going to shill for you, Mr. President, but I can't sell this if it's just a cave-in on the wall. You know, you have to do an emergency in order for me to go out and get the base riled up to think that you are fighting for them. Because, you know, when you're talking about who gives orders to who, I think they're both actually afraid of getting crosswise with their own base. This is a president who absolutely cannot lose even 3, 4, 5 points off of his base. And Sean Hannity knows that. And the one thing that I think that the president does understand is that in order to keep his fingers on the pulse of his own base, he has to watch what Fox News is saying. Fox News has to watch what Trump is saying. And they're both afraid of trying to sell something to their base that their base might not accept. And complete abject surrender on the wall would have been a tough sell.
That's a good point. Let's listen to, because the other person that goes way back even before Sean Hannity got in this game was Rush Limbaugh. Yeah. Rush Limbaugh was the original person who, you know, people out in rural hinterlands probably think is the news, right? Because he's like, I'll tell you the truth that the mainstream media won't tell you. And so a lot of people trust him and listen to him. He too tells Donald Trump, do this, and then Donald Trump does it, right? So here's Rush Limbaugh saying, no, he doesn't.
I'm not saying that you're a puppet master, but would you agree that he cares about what you say and what your millions of listeners hear?
Of course he does. He cares about what everybody thinks, but I don't make policy. I haven't had one call. I haven't had one inquiry. People don't really believe what they're saying about this. It's just another effort to continue to try to diminish the president, diminish Trump as somebody who doesn't know what he's doing, can't do it without guidance from the so-called wacko right.
You know, Tiffany, I come to you on this because I think part of the problem here that you got at earlier is that the Republican Party discovered when they elected Donald Trump that the things they thought animated conservatism low taxes for billionaires, whatever other things that were supposedly small government, and the strong Reaganite anti-communism. That those are the things that animated the elite of the Republican Party.
Exactly.
The base wanted to do race.
Exactly.
The base wanted to do xenophobia. They wanted to kick brown immigrants. Like the base was actually motivated by that one thing, immigration.
Right.
And Trump naturally goes along with that. He agrees with that, like, deep down in his soul. But when it comes to anything but that on policy, he does actually need someone to tell him what to say. So who kind of better than the same people who've been training this base to believe this way for years to say, no, here's how we do this.
Right. No, I can't agree with you more. And we can point out the hypocrisy of the MAGA crowd supporting this. You look at the wall, for example. The wall is going to have to build it, you would have to take land away from private owners. I'm sorry, where are the Republicans who support small government?
And do not believe in eminent domain.
Exactly.
I started to see in social media from people in right-wing social media starting to argue that people who don't want to give up their land are unpatriotic.
You will have dozens of Bundy
point,
ranches. You will have dozens of Bundy ranch situations with people with guns screaming and yelling, willing to fight the federal government if he goes ahead with this. But I think the other issue is this. As you see this grow, it erodes the integrity of anybody pretending to be a journalist or anybody pretending to be a politician. I cannot stand the fact that I have to say that Ann Coulter actually demonstrates integrity in this particular situation by saying, I think this is garbage. I wanted the wall, and the fact that you caved on the wall means it's a problem. So many of these people always want to front that they don't have the access that they have, except when they want to get their messages across. And that's what makes this problematic. There are journalists out there who have developed relationships with this president who are selling themselves out in order to maintain access but also deliver his message.
And I also say, like Rush Limbaugh is probably correct when he says he doesn't make policy. But Rush Limbaugh, whether you agree with his politics or not, is actually intelligent. And he can telegraph to his audience and to the president what to say and what to do, and he has a very good feeling for what the base of that party wants. He gets the mechanics correct. If you notice, the president didn't even know how to say, I'm going to sign an executive order. He said, we're going to have a national emergency. What does that mean? I mean, he doesn't even have the intelligence to get the mechanics of what the president does. Correct.
He's not, and Charlie, I have to come to you on this because you've been in the talk radio game for a long time, because one of the things is, not to make you answer for all of right-wing talk radio, but I think part of the problem here, too, is that it's one thing to sell fantasy policy ideas on talk radio or on Fox News and to create, like, fictional crises that are all just on TV or on the radio. The challenge here is that now people like Ann Coulter, who I think it's true, she is pretty consistent, she's saying, no, I want this fantasy thing to be real. They know, just like you know and all of us on this panel know, that the wall was an idea Roger Stone made up. They can read that. They know that. But they are now saying, no, make this fictional thing real. At what point does this all break apart? Because you can't keep proposing to people, even if they are as unfailingly loyal as Trump voters are, you're proposing fictional things. At some point, don't they notice that the fictional thing isn't real?
Well, I've been asking that question for about 2 or 3 years now. You know, at what point did they recognize that the emperor has no clothes, that the emergency is fictitious, that the wall is imaginary? You know, but it is a bizarre moment where you do have to say that at least Ann Coulter believed in something. A lot of these other folks have just become complete shills. And this, of course, is the problem, that you have to follow Donald Trump, and whatever fantasy he spins out, whatever lie he spins out, whatever con he's on, you have to find a way to rationalize it, to enable it, or to sell it to this audience. Now, that does require a certain amount of skill, I guess, but at the end of the day, you do wonder the price they're paying in credibility. I mean, I thought by now that the Republican voters would have said, why should we believe you if you're selling these things? But they've shown a remarkable capacity to adapt, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Really quick before we go, quickly, Michelle, at some point, does Fox News have to go down to the border and make pictures that make it seem like there's a border crisis? Because you can't keep saying it if you can't show it.
Well, don't forget, they kept showing us that caravan of people who are coming to invade the country.
That's
just
putting them on a
suddenly just disappear. So yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they do. They will always be somewhere in the country that you can get pictures and fabricate a crisis.
And then, Jason, I guess for your point, for the media, does the media continue to talk about the wall like it exists?
Oh, yeah.
and talk about this like it's normal policy when it's all fiction.
Well, this is the thing. This is when you go from being a journalist to a shill and a talking head. These people aren't concerned about the truth anymore. They're concerned about maintaining their access. They're going to talk about a fake wall. They're going to ignore the fact that Mexico was going to pay for it.
With this sort of sobriety and seriousness.
And what's more disturbing to me is the number of Americans who believe that kind of nonsense. How many times can somebody keep lying to you? You keep saying, hey, I'm perfectly happy
But remember,
with it.
every study that I have seen in recent years shows that a Fox News viewer watches nothing but
They
Fox.
only watch Fox.
They don't get sources of news from anywhere
We may all
else.
read papers every day. They wake up and read the president's Twitter feed.
They read his
That
Twitter
is their
feed.
morning read.
Gracious, gracious, gracious. Tiffany's going to stay and join us later in the show. Jason Johnson, Michelle Bernard, Charlie Sykes, thank you all very much. And coming up,